It looks like the recycling man is here. And there it goes. Alright. Well, it's time for an art update. So let's get back into the studio. So, yesterday I spent a lot of time working on a digital scan of a couple of pages of my monochrome sketchbook. So I didn't get a lot of new artwork finished. I penciled and inked this strip, and I penciled the next page in the monochrome sketchbook. So it's kind of one of those odd things about comics because they're kind of made in an assembly line process. So there's some days when it appears a lot has been finished, and other days when it appears a lot has not. And it's just whenever things get done. I mean, it's the same amount of work goes into it every day, but things don't get finished all at once. Anyway, last night I thought I'd look at some Pogo by Walt Kelly. Walt Kelly is probably the most influential cartoonist artist who has, well, influenced me. When I was very young in the 1990s, many Walt Kelly books were being reprinted. A lot of classic comics were being reprinted because it was the 100th anniversary of comics. So I grew up both with Calvin and Hobbes and The Far Side and Bloom County, but also with comics that were made decades before I was born, such as Pogo and Little Abner and Flash Gordon and the like. So anyway, last night I thought, instead of reading, continuing reading the book on how magazine cartoons were made, let's just look at some Pogo. So I just read December of 1949, some of these strips. So we get to see some shenanigans, and we also get to see the Christmas strips for that year. Let's see if I can't find them. Yeah, here we go. Now, as far as I can tell, the Pogo strips were drawn. Let me see if I can show you. So they were drawn in two rectangles about 4 inches by 8 inches. And the reason is because some newspapers printed them as a strip, and then some made them into a square. Now, this was a different dimension than Charles Schultz had. As far as I can tell with Charles Schultz, he did 10 inches by 4, two 10-inch by 4 rectangles. And his stuff was printed as strips or as rectangles or even as a column. So the Peanuts is a little wider. Now, when Schultz designed Peanuts, with the instructions of a syndicate, they wanted it to be minimalistic so it could be shrunk to a very small size. So Peanuts has a lot more white space. So Pogo appears fuller, but it was drawn in a slightly smaller frame. Now, I know Peanuts was actually drawn with a long horizontal piece of paper which is folded and then mailed. And I think the same was done with Pogo, at least for this time period, because you will notice there are times when he does go over the middle line, which would make sense if this, you can see that here, if this was on a single sheet of paper. And then it would be the syndicate's problem to cut that out and turn it into a plate for printing. So anyway, here with the Christmas strip, we have the swamp denizens. They're putting on a party for their only orphan. And we have sort of the misanthropic, lovable character, Porcupine, who's basically Grumpy the Dwarf. And he is surprised because the party's for him. So here we have the heartwarming box. So Walt Kelly is influential for me for a lot of reasons. I mean, beautiful character design, lovely motion, a lot of energy to his drawings. He really understands how to use black and white, so he doesn't use any tone. It is also his trees are wonderful. He really understands how to use black, and very creative use of language. I mean, there's a whole lot to love about Walt Kelly. There are two Walts that I admire, Walt Kelly and Walt Disney, for different reasons. Now, of course, there are some things about Walt Kelly which were less than admirable if you ever delve into his comic in depth. You will realize that he dabbled in politics, and he was doing that even in 1950. And the problem with politics in comics is that they do not age very well, and sometimes they don't even age very well at the time when they were printed. And this is especially true in the common era, the present era, when we have the internet and when many documents have been declassified, and many things which he thought about geopolitics and economics have turned out to be incorrect, sadly. The creator of Bloom County, uh, Berkeley Breathed, has famously stated, despite his very political strips, that he thinks comic strips should just stay out of politics because it just never works out. And if the creator of Opus has found that wisdom, I'm not going to argue with him. Of course, not everyone takes his own advice. Uh, so anyway, today I'll be working on this Friday strip, and I hope to get a few more pages painted in here, and maybe I will work on a page in the monochrome sketchbook. So anyway, that is my update for today, and I will talk to you later. Goodbye.